Hello and welcome. This is Omar Torres, and you're listening to Pop Therapy, a podcast that explores the intersection between psychology and pop culture. There's so much to unpack. So join me and let's get started. Well, look who's back. Another week, another episode with your friendly neighborhood therapist. Hi, it's me, Omar. So I don't have a ton to say, but there's like two main things that I wanted to share with you. The first is that it's official. A Harvard study has now classified ice cream as a superfood. So I'm giving you all free rein to just go out and eat as much ice cream as possible. No. So the study, so what they claim is correlation, not causation, but they did this like massive study in Harvard with all these participants. And apparently the participants that ate ice cream twice a week had fewer risk for like diabetes and like heart disease and all that stuff. And again, they don't know exactly why. It could just be like when you eat ice cream twice a week, like it could have something to do with your mood. Actually, it may not necessarily be the ice cream itself nutritionally, but it might just be like these are just like chiller people or less stressed out people because they're just like having ice cream and having a grand old time all doing it. So look it up. But I don't know. I think it just goes to show you that treating yourself here and there, just like a little sweet treat here and there, can sometimes go a long way health-wise. So that's one thing that I wanted to share with you all. I thought that was interesting. And I've been telling everybody, I'm like, the next round of ice cream is on me ever since reading this study. So I'm probably going overboard with it, but I don't know. I'm going to like run with it and see how far I can go. The next thing I wanted to share was, so I recently moved. I think it's fine to say I'm in Fort Greene now. And I had like a lovely little solo day yesterday. Today's Monday. Yeah, yesterday. I had a lovely little solo day yesterday. I was just like walking around the neighborhood, getting to know it. I was doing a little bit of antiquing. I know it's so gay, but here we are. But I was going through all these like antique stores and thrift stores. And I am in one furniture store in particular. And who do I see? None other than supermodel Alex Consani. So I am such a big fan of hers. So when I saw her, I was like speechless. She's not my Sarah Michelle Gellar. She's not quite, but she's pretty close. I would say she's like maybe number 2 or 3 for me, at least right now. I just like love her content. She's so funny. She's so beautiful. And we made eye contact, but that's mostly because I was like staring at her. I was like in shock, just staring at her. I couldn't believe it was her. And she was like talking to a friend. And I don't know, it's just one of those moments that really catch you off guard, that really just like, it really humbled me. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. Suddenly, I didn't know how my limbs worked. I was like bumping into things. And it was just like a really funny, cute moment. But she's like one of those individuals that I would also like love to be able to, just like sit down and chat with. She would be a good time. So Alex Consani, if you're listening, call me. And I won't be weird this time. I promise you. I won't just like stare at you awkwardly. With that being said, I'm so thrilled to introduce our guest today. She is a relationship advice columnist for the Boston Globe. She's an author, and she's also the host of the podcast Love Letters. Please welcome into your hearts, Meredith Goldstein.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. Okay, so first things first, obviously I have to ask. So as a fellow Buffy fan, I have to ask, how do you feel about the news? Where were you when you heard the news?
It's quite a week. Yeah. Where was I? I think I went online. I think I went on Instagram and I was like, oh no, because my algorithm is pretty much feeding me at that point,
right,
ready or not to information.
Yep.
And Buffy information. And then a flood of messages came in about this where we were all debating what was happening. And then, of course, it's like breaking news unfolding in real time of, Sarah Michelle Gellar's comment about this. And then who was the Hulu exec. And I was just disappointed. I mean, I was not one of the people who thought better not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the frustrations I had, she did a show, a werewolfy show, which I've already forgotten the name of.
Wasn't it like Teen Wolf or
It was not.
no?
It was like Wolf Teen. Maybe it was Teen Wolf. It was a supernatural teen show.
Yes.
And I think it got a season. And I watched it, and my frustration was, I am coming for her.
Of course.
And I will be so excited if you can give me new characters that I am excited about who are younger. That's fine. I have no problem with seeing shows about younger people, but like, I just never got enough her.
Yeah.
So if the critique was we want more of Buffy and these characters, like, I'm all for that critique. I just could not believe that you have months and months and months and months of notes, and like I was just like, where did the communication break down? But I was bummed. I had a friend who said maybe this is for the best, like let's do it right or not at all. And I'm like, no, we used to we used to be a place where you could have one season where it wasn't even that good.
Yeah.
Parks and Rec, and you're just gonna like let these shows settle and become something great.
Right.
And so often with shows that I love the most, the first season, Buffy included, are not hitting. So to me, I don't have a bar of this has to come out of the gate with perfection.
Right.
And unfortunately, I fear that the expectations on it were that, and that seems dreadfully unfair.
Yeah, that is a really good point. And with that being said, I do trust Sarah Michelle Gellar.
I do as well.
Yeah, right. Like she had such respect for the show and for the characters. And apparently I didn't know this until, the news broke that the show was happening, that they were filming the pilot, that Chloe Zhao was like a huge fan as well and really respected it as well. So I trusted their hands. But I don't know if you heard or read Sarah Michelle Gellar's comments about the executive, how he would be on set like, oh, this show isn't for me. I didn't even watch Buffy when it originally aired. And I was getting like pissed reading it.
There's nothing more alienating. And this happens in my workplace too, where well-meaning editors will say, oh, I don't even read that kind of story. And by the way, I've noticed I do it too. I will walk into our Boston Globe sports department and be like, I don't care about any of this, but I don't feel as though Red Sox fans are an underdog or writers. So I think I'm trying to be less disrespectful and more, I'm letting you know I have no expertise.
Yes.
So I think there's a way to say, first of all, if you're not familiar with the material and you're the executive on the project, get familiar.
Yeah, I mean, at least watch the top 10 favorite episodes or something.
Like to me, with such a property that is so loved by fans, even watch the whole thing. But it can be really demoralizing to feel like the thing you're so passionate about making right, the person in charge of it doesn't even get. So I was happy she's been as forthcoming, because I'm like, tell your story.
Me
let
too.
us know. I don't want this to be the more we know, the better. And I know she's saying if something leaks, don't watch it. That's a hard thing. I probably won't. I mean, I don't like seeing things that aren't done. I've seen shows without music and I've been thrown off. So I don't even want to get there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, to your point, it's such the fandom is like so, I was going to say intense, but like in the best way. I mean, intense. Like we love the show so much. Yeah. And we did have, yes, of course, like high expectations, but I'm okay with something not being perfect or just like hitting it out of the park right away.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think what also kind of frustrated me was I've never seen every episode of Star Trek. Right. I've never seen every single episode, but I know how huge the fandom is, that it's a cult-like following. And I have respect for that. I'm at least aware of that. And I did not get the sense that this executive even got that, like even understood how precious this was to the fandom and how excited everyone was for this to come out. I mean, and I think that's like what really got me as well. Like, okay, maybe you haven't seen every episode, but you have to at least know just like the cultural impact and the significance of it is what I would hope an executive working on the show would understand at the very least.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know what plays into these decisions. I mean, when we had was it Batwoman, the movie that was canceled,
Yeah.
where there was the business of this is so far, because I'm like, if you spend this much on a pilot, why would you want to just toss it? But I
Right.
don't really understand the benefits that come with shelving something.
Right.
Which I think as a creator, it makes me want to cry.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I obviously had to get that out of the way as a fellow Buffy fan. So thank you for your thoughts.
We're dealing with our stages of grief together.
Yeah, exactly. And so the first question I had here was kind of like silly but kind of serious. How, as a relationship advice columnist, how many times do you hear the Sex and the City get a Carrie like, oh, you're like Carrie Bradshaw. Oh, it's like Sex and the City. Like, how many jokes have you heard or references have been made to you making that comparison?
It's so funny because I think especially when I started, which now is 17 years ago, which is crazy. The podcast has been going since 2018, but the column since 2009.
Okay.
There was a little bit more of that in the beginning, partly because Sex and the City was more recently in our brains.
Right, true.
But I think also I would just laugh because, first of all, I show up in sweatpants and like sneakers. So I'm already, I remember going to a book event in Baltimore and they were like, this is Boston's Carrie Bradshaw. And I was laughing because I thought, well, Boston would have a Carrie Bradshaw that looks like me, right? I'm like showing up like basically not in fashionable attire.
I see.
In a like leisure wear from the Gap. So I think I cannot live up to the tiny hats and big dresses that a different Sarah is wearing. And also, I think, that fictional take on a columnist is, she was really talking about herself.
Right.
Whereas so
That's
often
true.
I'm a reporter, like a mental health professional would not do what I do. They would not, for the most part, sort of, I'm approaching these things more as a reporter, especially in the podcast.
Of course.
But I was like, I'm failing at being Carrie Bradshaw, and I have made the joke. It's like Liz Lemon as Carrie Bradshaw. It's like a little bit more like that. I'm like, I felt like akin to all of these women who were far clumsier and forthcoming in a different way.
Yeah.
That said, there are many times when I'm interviewing people or writing the column where I think literally I couldn't help but wonder. And we have a joke at the Globe where when I'm doing the podcast, I'll be like, I couldn't help but wonder. And we'll all stop to give a moment of, I had a moment. So I do think that when you're taking a small relationship issue and broadening it, you all just can't help but wonder. We all can't help but wonder.
We all can't help. We're all Carrie Bradshaw in that way.
We're all Carrie Bradshaw, yes. So yeah, no, I mean, I have come around to I more felt like I was disappointing people. Like I'm not snazzy like that, but that's okay. I think I remember going to a Sex and the City movie junket to write a story about that movie from really my perspective of doing similar work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember which movie it was for, but Sarah Jessica Parker said I would be intimidated by Carrie Bradshaw. And I remember her saying that Kristen Davis was the closest to Carrie Bradshaw of that group. Like Sarah Jessica Parker was like, I've got kids, I've got a nanny, I'm kind of passive about certain things. I'm not, she felt like Kristen Davis was more of a uniter of social times and a leader of doing what she wants. Yeah, and that
so
stuck out to me. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool that ultimately Charlotte was a Carrie. That's like so funny.
Charlotte was the Carrie, and yeah, everybody was somebody else.
Yeah. Was writing about relationships and dating and love, was that always on your vision board? How did you end up along this path?
It was not on my vision board, but I'm also not surprised. I think on my vision board was very early on was arts writing.
Okay.
And that still happens, but I think my interest in the arts is similar to what you and I feel about Buffy, right? Like, how are we engaging with work that makes us feel a thing?
Yeah.
And I think that between that and my coming into journalism at a time that technology was rapidly evolving. So Facebook was newly public to people.
Oh, wow.
This is like, I'm 48. So like I was in my 20s and all of a sudden flip phones were turning into Blackberries that were turning into people were dropping their landlines. And one of the early stories I did about relationships, and this would have been before the column, I think, was about how Facebook had ruined high school reunions because there had been an element of surprise that there no longer was. And so, I really think of it as a communication revolution that we experienced, where when I started the advice column in 2009, someone wrote in and was like, is it rude to ask out someone by text? And I was like, yeah, make an effort, make a phone call. Now I feel like making a phone call is like weird and intrusive. And why are you like messing with somebody?
It's like a red flag.
Oh my God. Can you imagine calling? I'd be like, what's wrong? So the way we communicate is so different. So I began to truly, certainly still write about art and connect art to what I do. But I began to realize also that especially when I was quarter life crisising as I started journalism in some ways, it was about what I was feeling and what are we all doing. So I've been lucky that I can sort of do all those things at once, but I think they go back to relationships.
Yeah, I guess I guess it always like comes back to relationships, especially when you're talking about art. One of the things I find in my work is that clients often reference pop culture events or pieces of music or literature or a television show in order to talk about what they're experiencing or in order to explain to me, right? Like, it's like that episode of Sex and the City when blah, 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 right? And to sort of like drive the point home. And I just feel like it all roads lead back to relationships at some point.
I mean, I'm smiling and thinking about using pop culture references with my own therapist and knowing in her face, I mean, she's very honest with me when she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I had gone on some tangent about something, and I referenced Clayface in Batman the Animated Series. Now, this is a reach, right? For some.
Is it a deep cut? Yeah, not for me. I was obsessed with that show. So
I was going to say, not for someone in the Buffy verse, perhaps, because these things feel all related and tethered. But I was trying to explain to her, I'm like, there's a part of Clayface, you can like break off a part.
Yeah.
And I think this was, she has introduced internal family systems to me, which I did not know was like a trendier, like somebody said it's on TikTok. I missed this. And I've also read controversial things about it, although that does not seem to match my experience. That one story I read about it where it was controversial, I was like, this doesn't feel like it's
I think I read this. It was like how IFS ruined. The cut.
It was like split personalities. I'm like, but she has told me, and I'm sure you have this expertise as well, of like, she was not surprised. This was a more recent. She tried to introduce it to me for, I think, like many months. Yeah. And I could not click, like I didn't, like there was this, what part of you? And I'm sure, and I'd be like, there's one part.
Right.
I could not see beyond that part.
Yeah.
And then eventually something clicked, and that has been fairly revelatory, but she probably does this. I feel like it's an IFS light where it's like, okay, in the moment when it helps for communication, but, but I believe that Clayface was brought up in that context. But I'm constantly bringing up pop culture references. And in fact, I've now found other friends who have IFS in their therapy and how they picture their parts are all a different range. But for me, often they are pop culture characters.
Oh, fascinating. Yeah.
She kept saying so cool. about a primary part when I don't know if that would be like, what is it, firefighters and managers or something, whatever.
Yeah.
She just kept saying, what does she look like? What does she look like? I've already gendered this part, right? As a woman.
Right.
And she said, what does she look like? And I kept saying, well, Jerry from Succession.
Right. You're like, duh.
Don't you know? That's clearly Jerry from Succession. So luckily she had that. She was like, okay, like I understand what you're going for, right? And like, but I think that is also helpful when you talk about like being on the therapist end of it. It must be very helpful to hear, oh, well, I felt like this it reminded me of this episode. And
especially when talking about relationships. I feel like that is when I hear that phrase the most. It's like that episode, or it's like this character whenever talking about relationships. In your work with the column and with the podcast, what are some of the questions that you hear the most? Is there like a theme that you hear often, or are there like particular questions that you're like, wow, this question keeps coming up?
Some are forever questions. And when I say that, I mean, I've also looked at advice columns in like the early 1900s, and like people were getting ghosted then. It was just easier to do it. So, but I think there is a dating fatigue is big. And it is so much bigger now than it was when I started the column, because they were barely dating apps.
Yeah.
So you could not do this 24 hours a day. Like you could open your laptop and go on Match or whatever it was and click a few people, and then you were done.
Yeah.
That evolved very quickly, where like now, like especially right before COVID, it was like often women, straight women saying, I am 10 o'clock at night feeling like I just want to read, but I'm like, but is my husband on there? Like feeling as though, and that made me really sad. And that still happens, but I think we got a little bit better to ourselves. And also women are like they're just like, whatever, I'm just gonna read.
Right.
They're like, okay, like I think feeling like you are behind in some way is like and I will tell you, we have a new thing at the Boston Public Library. We have as of February,
the phone booth. That is so cool.
So, yeah, it's like, we started talking about this. What if we had a phone booth in the Boston Public Library you could call the advice column? And I will tell you that I didn't know if people were just going to go in there, call, and be like, say something awful.
Right.
They're not. But I had to remember these people are going into the library, so they're probably not going to say something awful.
That's a good point.
I'm getting
it's a self-selecting group of folks.
Curious, thoughtful. Like, absolutely, there are some teens that are doing some stuff. But even the stuff the teens are doing is actually like they'll start joking and then they'll be like, actually, I'm worried about my calculus exam. Like there's a lot of confession in this booth. It feels like a confessional
booth. It's so
booth.
earnest.
But yeah, it's very earnest. And I would say that most people, even full-grown adults, are like, I feel like I don't have as much friends, whatever, as other people. And especially if they're under 30, it's like, I'm being left behind in some way. Everybody feels like they haven't done enough or dated enough, or my friends are moving past me in experiences. And I've had some really interesting questions from college students about like not even knowing when something is a friendship.
Wow.
Like, oh, I see this person in class and we like each other's posts. Is that a friend?
Gotcha.
If I don't see them. So there's the technology piece is big, but these are all questions about like how much of my online relationship correlates to my in-person relationship.
Right.
Do I need an in-person relationship? You know, protecting your peace at home versus, and I'm using that phrase, versus forcing yourself out of the house. Like all the things anybody listening to this is probably feeling is like what I hear. And what I'm experiencing, it's like, do I have to? Oh, wait, I want to. Do I want to? The world is terrible. Let me get under a blanket. Let me get out. I'm privileged. Let me get out of the blanket. It's like a lot of stuff at once.
It reminds me of like the I guess the core question I get most often is some variation of, is this normal?
Yes. Is this normal?
Am I okay? Is this normal?
Right.
Is at the core of basically any question that I get. And it just like but having conversations about being okay with your own journey while also stepping outside of your comfort zone here and there. It's such a delicate balance to strike because it's so different for everybody. Like stepping outside of one's comfort zone for one person is like, let me get out of bed, let me go to that birthday party. And for other people, it's no, say no to plans, stay home and be okay with just like having a night in. And it's like such a delicate balance to find for everybody because it's like, again, because it's different for everybody, but everyone's wondering the same thing. Like, is this okay?
Is this okay? And I'm really curious to see with that phone booth, what's going to happen in June when it's nice out here. Because I think whether you're in New York or you're in Boston, like these are places where the answer to those questions can come down to what is it like out. And I always wonder if I started this column in California, would it look the same? Would it be the same? I'm not saying people in California don't have problems, but I am saying that there is an existential dread that I feel like as I get older starts to take over January to March. So launching this thing in February, this phone booth in Boston when it snowed like it did this year and everything's like dirty and dogs have peed. And I'm like, welcome to my phone booth with the problems. And in May, they might be much more delightful.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's interesting because I definitely notice I get fewer calls for therapy in the summer when it's nice out. You know what I mean? And it's usually around like February is when people are calling me like, I need to talk to someone, please. And so
I think March is like really hard. It's so long and it's so and you're lied to about it. You're oh, like it's happening and it's not happening.
It's not. Yeah, you're like
it's like literally snowing right now while I'm recording this. So
it is technically spring, right? And it's like and it's so gross outside right now.
Right.
Yeah. So we're all gaslit into thinking or believing that March is supposed to be like, no, it's beautiful and the sun is shining. No, but it's still kind of like, I don't know, at least like in this area, like New York, Boston, it's still like, no, I'm gonna get you. Like
it's unpleasant. So yes.
The other thing that I've noticed too is when it comes to relationships, at least, is this like demonization. That's such a strong word, but you know, whatever. I'm going to go with it. This demonization of singledom. It's like this rush to be in a relationship, or this almost like this like sense of urgency. Like, and I think what brought this up for me was hearing you talk about people feeling left behind and how often that feeling comes up for single people when they talk about like, everyone around me is in a relationship or getting married or having kids, and here I am, like the single one. And it's never the tone is never like, I'm the single one. I'm the one like with more time and more money and I get to travel. It's always like, womp womp. I'm the single one. Do you hear that a lot from folks that write in?
I do. And it's interesting because this has shifted quite a bit too, where there is also a cultural shift in perception of that, where people have really taken that back. And that's partly because the numbers would tell you that if you are fairly monumentally single, you are not alone.
Yeah.
That as people get older, more people live alone, that you know, when you look at a falling divorce rate, it often suggests reporting that tells me the marriage rate, like people used to be doing everything more.
Yeah.
Where we have a declining birth rate that like I've always been confused about whether there are not enough babies or too many babies. It seems like not enough. Like as a news reader, I'm always like, wait, is it what's the right amount of? I don't know, and I don't have kids. I should say that. So if I sound
how many babies are we supposed
to
have? Yeah,
right. I'm like, is it good? Like I don't know, but I think so. I think this is an acute phenomenon if you're depending on who your peers are, depending on where you live, but also age. I think is a big factor. So like for sure, when I was 27, I went to a bunch of weddings. When I was 32, I went to a bunch of weddings. Then you go from sort of being up, I'm the single friend. And I always knew that was not a priority for me, partly because I didn't want kids. So I was like, I don't have a clock. I don't have to. What a gift, right? I'm now on no schedule, which can make a person quite lazy, actually, as I found. But I did feel like, but what happens to me? Like, even if I don't want that, I'm still on this island. And it doesn't mean I don't want some love. And it makes it harder to define what I do want. And there weren't as many words back then to talk about it. And, but then you get to the place where you're like, oh, I'm the single person, where it's like, it goes from question mark to like exclamation point of people who, you know, even in the happiest relationships, were facing challenges I didn't face. Yeah. And there was like this weird reverse envy of, oh, I get to come to your house and like it's still fun here, which is not I wasn't gloating. But I think one thing I realized is as I got older was how, especially in the lockdown of COVID in 2020, in my early 40s, I was like, oh, this is spectacularly easy. Yeah. Yeah. And that a lot of people did not. Of course. Talking about being alone. Like I had a lot of training. And if anything, I like wanted more time to just do stuff. So like here I was. And so but what I also started to realize was that I had a very big chip on my shoulder about my singleness, where I'd be like, I go to IKEA by myself and I put the stuff in the car and I'm a lady of the, I'm a strong woman of the 90s, right? Like, but that was actually, well, partially true. Sure. I often had 10 friends when I was going to IKEA. And, you know, like, or 3. Yep. I had found younger friends, older friends, peers who had time for me. I was often less alone than my coupled friends. not only that, when you become so comfortable in a situation, I was beginning to think, oh, there's no emotional challenge. Like when I started dating my now live-in significant other, I was like, wow, like I am lacking some skills
Yeah. Yeah.
of accountability and sharing and how brave, like I was like, oh, I didn't realize how brave my friends were, how brave my coupled friends were to make themselves so vulnerable.
Right.
And I always, when I was younger, I'd think of it as like, oh, whatever, like it's easier.
Yeah.
But in fact, right, for maybe for some, but not for all. So
For sure.
Yeah, I do think though that now we are seeing that hopefully that every experience is hard and easy, right? There are these
Yeah.
moments where
Yeah.
it's like, and I just think as specifically with, I keep going back to straight women, but I do think it's a straight women culture thing of like, I recently was talking to a researcher out at
Was it the Kinsey Institute one?
wasn't Kinsey,
Okay.
it was somebody with Toronto
Okay.
who was talking about, she had studied single men and single women.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these were single straight men. My estimation is that this would change very much if it was not straight men,
Yeah.
but like that men reported to being pretty miserable while single.
Mm-hmm.
And the women were like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Whoa, fascinating.
I'm fine. Like
yeah.
a happiness.
Yeah.
So even the perception gap of like who's actually happy, who's not, like maybe they wanted to meet somebody, but they had like plenty of stuff to do.
Right. They had like
Whereas,
a full
like,
life.
They have like a full life,
Yeah.
right? And that relationships needed to be additive.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like this wasn't. So I do think that this sort of like spinstery, like whatever, like I think most women, especially as they get older, especially once they hit 35, they're like, I don't know. But then you begin to want things for different reasons.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that extends, that acceptance and understanding of this begins to extend to younger people.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, I think it's like there are a lot of people who do want strong relationships and marriage and children and some traditional units of that, perhaps, but I think probably less than we knew.
Right. That's a really,
like, I mean, gender aside. Yeah.
Yeah. There's it's oftentimes when clients come in and they talk about wanting to fall in love and wanting to be in a relationship, I will essentially like let them know that I find the pursuit of love to be one of the most like noble causes on earth. So I'm always like, that is fantastic. And let's take a look at the rest of like the social landscape. Like, who are your friends? Where's your family? Where else does love exist? And let's also tend to those gardens, because I think it can be, to your point, maybe less so now for a lot of people, but it can feel like when you're single, you're all alone. And I try to do this like balancing act of, I know the feeling is real. I know you're not lying to me when you say, I feel lonely. I know you're not lying. And I'm trying to sort of like get you to see that you're not alone despite feeling lonely. And, and that can be, that can make a huge difference in someone's life who's looking for love, to recognize, oh, I might be surrounded by love. It may not be romantic love, but it's like these other really important kinds of love that I try to get them to focus on. And hearing you talk about living with someone, I mean, it's just like, I'm like, oh my God, hell yes. I'm like resonating so much with that. The sharing part is like, damn, I really have to, it is not a natural inclination for me to just like give up 50%, not that it has to be perfectly 50%, but, but that you're like giving up space and making room for someone in this like physical way. I always thought of making space for someone in a time way. Like I have to carve out time to spend with them. And that felt like easier. But then when my boyfriend moved in, I was like, oh, I have to make like actual space for you now. And I was like, damn, this is hard.
I mean, for me, this space was less of an issue because I sort of feel like if you stick me in a corner with a laptop, I'm fine. Like I actually don't require much physical space, but I would say that like, I know certain things about myself, but they became more pronounced during this process. Like I break stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't treat I don't have any nice things because I will break things.
Right.
But that doesn't work when you have somebody who has nice things. And by the way, I like his nice things.
Yeah.
So
I don't.
Yeah. But I have broken a lot of things. And so like you get to a point where like your loving person is like, what is the thing that needs to happen? So you're not like chucking a wine glass at the wall because you don't feel like walking it to the dishwasher or washing it by hand when it literally says wash by hand on it. And I'm like, what is it about me? So I've had to sort of say, I mean, it's not happening all the time, but I was like, I'm careless. And I'm careless with belongings.
Okay.
And I can be, and often I am rushing.
Yeah.
So what is the thing? So much of my stuff is about just like slowing down.
Yeah, for sure.
Reading the instructions. The other night I went to bed. I walked upstairs with a television remote control and went to bed with it, leaving the person I live with to search for it for a really long time the next day. So it's just like I can be like Amelia Bedelia in my own home alone, but I cannot do that to someone else.
You remind me of something that I tell single clients is, and I try to again like be considerate and thoughtful of you know their discomfort around being single, but I try to in a clinical way tell them, listen, everywhere you go, there you are, because relationships, there are things that you can only confront in a relationship. And while the closeness and the connection, like all of that is lovely and wonderful, but get ready to face some shit that you didn't think you had to face before. Yeah, there's a witness, yes.
And I lived with the same woman friend, my best friend. We met as roommates and we lived incredibly successfully together from like, I'm going to say like 25 to 24 to 30s, early 30s, like a lot of years. And that becomes like a marriage in that like she was a witness, but it was different.
Yeah,
like
of course.
She was just like, that's your weird thing.
Right.
But when you're an adult and somebody's seeing it for the first time, you're like, I mean, I think about therapy questions. Like I'm a big check to see if the door is locked like 100 times person. And then I'm being asked by a significant other, it's really interesting that you are checking the door like a bunch of times on the first floor and then leaving the window wide open next to it, like with the window open. So like at that point, it's like not really about safety.
Right.
It's about something else. So like, but I was like, that's such an excellent point. I'm going to take that to therapy, right? Where I didn't even notice it. I'm like, you're right. It's not about safety because anybody can just walk into my house through the window.
Right.
So what is it about? And it's actually, I think, been helpful for my therapist because she was like, oh.
Yeah, and that's what I've loved about couples therapy. It's that exact thing where you have someone else that's like, well, when you do this, and I'm like, oh shit, it wouldn't have even occurred to me to share that in therapy because it just like was not on my radar, or it's something that I do so reflexively that I'm like, well, this is boring. Like there's nothing to report here. Right. And so then when my boyfriend's like, well, you do this thing, or you said it like this, and I'm like, oh shit, like he got me. I can't hide the way that I used to.
And it never feels like an attack or a judgment.
No,
it's like actual curiosity of like, oh, like, you know, and it goes both ways too. So I think I have just had a greater, like, I think that it's funny, like I was an early adopter of like, not an early adopter, everybody before me was like, you know, you can be a woman alone and it's not whatever.
Right.
But I believed that. I didn't need convincing. So I think I spent a lot of my 20s and 30s being like, being alone does not make me lonely. I was incredibly proud to be single. I after a certain age, I very quickly, as soon as my friends got married and started the realness of it, I was like, oh, I wouldn't have been ready for this.
Yeah.
Like they had a better understanding of what they had signed up for. There was no right or wrong. It just was, I also was assured that I could still be part of their lives.
Yeah.
And that I was going to be included. So all of that got better. And then I think as people have shifted their sense a little bit about what it means to be single, I'm like, oh, I want to give credit to these couples I ignored and thought they were sort of easy going, but like that how much they've accomplished in building a life together, because that can be a challenge. So I hope we can all meet each other and say like community looks so many different ways.
Right.
And there are couples within communities and there are open couples within communities and there are single people. And like, if you have a romantic partner, you're not done.
Right.
And for me, I would not
yeah.
have been able to be happy at all in the relationship I'm in without a full community.
I love the idea of when you're in a relationship, or just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean you're done. I think in many ways, you're just getting started, babe. I'm like, buckle up, because there's just so much that you get to learn about yourself. And, you know, like one of the big things is like, how do you navigate conflict with a loved one? And there's so much that comes up for people when it comes to navigating conflict. There's just so, you know, I have so many clients that I work with. They'll talk about a fight that they're having, or they'll talk about feeling so upset at their partner. And I'll be like, and it's like it's so cliche. I almost feel bad doing it, but I'm like, you do realize this fight that you're describing, it's a fight that you told me you had with your mom when you were like 15. Like you do, or your dad when you were, you know, 15. Like you do realize that, right? And it pains me, because I'm like, I wish we weren't such just like walking cliches, but we really are.
And it makes me feel kind of like, sometimes my therapist will say like, what does that remind you of? And I'll be like, what, my dad? And I'll be like, oh yeah, but it's like kind of like soothing.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say about single people this is like not at all based in a reality I've reported or researched. Okay. So please put a big asterisk next to this. In the column and in life, certainly on social media in ways that are targeted, I'm sure, I feel like there's a bigger conversation about friendship breakups than there ever has been.
True.
Me. And I have a theory about this, which is that single people and coupled people for a very long time now have evolved into having friendships that are so close and so primary partner-like that they are similar to romantic relationships. So where, you know, if you got married at 24, like my mother did or whatever, and then like had some friends, but they were neighborhood friends. Like I'm rewatching Mad Men right now. So I'm seeing this very like old school method of like, we are a core unit. I am isolated and incredibly lonely, but we have neighbors and they come over and have sherry. Like, let's say that's it. Like your friends are far away if they're close, but they're not your partners. Mm-hmm. And I believe that some of this is about having the language to talk about comfort and friendship boundaries. But I think it's also that like, maybe if you think you've never had what is like a romantic relationship, maybe you sort of have.
Maybe
it's
you
a platonic romantic, you know, it's some of these friendship breakups are like, because no one ever said to you, you have been making choices with someone for a really long time.
Yeah.
And now you are shifting, and that feels really uncomfortable, because if you were dating, you'd break up.
Right.
But you don't have to break up, but what does it look like? So I have been thinking, like people got really close in these wonderful ways. And it's like figuring out, you know, like that woman I said I lived with, like here we are, like two straight women living together. And there could have been a world in which when she said, listen, I want to marry my boyfriend, where I said like, this makes me feel terrible and I hate it.
Right.
Or if I had, but instead we were just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But that was then. So I don't know. I wonder about that. If people are having these platonic partners.
That's really interesting. It gets me thinking and wondering about the nature of friendships and whether that's like gone through a bit of a change. Like that's a really good point that you made about how a lot of these friendships in a lot of ways mimic romantic relationships. And, you know, not that I don't think we've never had close friendships, but I think there was like a time when the conversation was, as far as relationships go, was only about romantic relationships. And I think now, to your point, there's a lot more conversation and even TV shows like Sex and the City, where the primary relationships were the friendships, where folks are investing a lot more in their friendships lately.
Yeah. And we don't like, it might be three people, it might be one person, it might be, I was thinking a lot when a Massachusetts city became the first to sort of have polyamory on the record, Somerville.
Yeah.
They, during lockdown, I think it was to make sure people had access to each other, multiple partners. And I looked at the definition of domestic partner by their definition, and I thought, well, I've had like four of these.
Right.
I'm an unmarried person who was not like, it just felt like, like so many people I know are like this with siblings, let's say, where they're the primary partners, even if they have spouses.
Yeah.
But this felt like, oh, you're recognizing the word romantic is not in there. It's just like, this is somebody not related to you with whom you share a life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that can be a group. And so the language around that, the public policy around that, the feelings around that can make it so beautiful and also so difficult.
Yeah. It makes me feel really happy to know that, or at least to, again, like we don't have, this is like purely anecdotal, but the idea of friendships becoming more respected and more valued and seen as like something to really, really cherish and respect and talk about and think about does make me like that, like warms my heart. It comes with then conversations around like, well, then how do I break up with a friend? Which is, that's kind of like, yeah, you got to pay to play, right? Like relationships aren't frictionless. We don't get to be really close to people and absolve ourselves of conflict or endings or loss or anything like that. Yeah. But I love this idea that people are focusing more and more on friendships than ever before. Maybe even like just as much as romantic relationships, if not more, especially to your earlier point about, you know, a lot of women being like, oh yeah, I'm single, but I'm good. Right. Like it's getting me thinking about like, oh, I wonder if that is related to the importance placed on friendships, because that is part of like someone's like rich and full life who's fine being single. It's like, oh yeah, I have like lovely friends. They're like my family.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely part of it. And I just hope that within friendships, we get better about like the language of adjusting. Like, yes, there's grief when somebody changes their priorities or moves or gets a significant other. But like, how do we then shift so that it doesn't have to feel like a breakup? Because that's one of the wonderful things about friendship is like, you don't have to, like, it seems limitless and it's just so I think these things have evolved so much and sometimes we're not even noticing how they're evolving.
So one question I ask all my guests, Meredith, is this one, which is, what is one piece of advice that you've gotten from the mental health / therapy world that you live by? So this can be something you got from your own therapist. This could be something you read in a book or heard in a podcast. But what is one piece of advice that you sort of like swear by?
The short version, I have two. Am I allowed to do two?
Yes, you are. Of course.
One is so simple, but it's like, take a beat. It's so simple. And for other people, they probably just organically take a beat.
Yeah.
I answer a question usually from the outside world internally so quickly. Even if it's as simple as, will you come to this event? I might be like, yes, no. Yeah. But it's also, how do I feel? And often it's like 30 seconds more to be like, how do I feel?
Right.
Rest, think about it. And I am so speedy to an answer that it's sometimes the wrong answer. And I've given myself a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's so hard just to be for a second, as opposed to jumping to a conclusion about labeling a feeling. So I think my own therapist has been good about being like, you know, pointing out that when I've taken one moment,
right,
sometimes the answer looks different.
Yeah.
But the other thing goes back to the IFS of it all, the internal family systems of it all, which is that for anybody doing it, I'm trying to, when I started picturing it and the Inside Out movie of it all, right?
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Totally.
Which is, you know, it's different, but similar principles, right? I pictured a table, a kitchen table where all these parts were sitting. At that kitchen table were a few other people also, my sister, for one. Now, what my therapist said to me was like, wait, they're at the table? The external people in my life who I love more than anything.
Yeah.
But I could not imagine my parts, my soul making a decision without the people I love most having an equal seat at the table.
Yeah.
But the minute I was like, wait, no, only my parts are at the table. First of all, it feels less lonely when you, now I sound like the article that's like, you're going to wind up being in a horror movie with 18 personalities. But that's not it. Yeah. But just that I am an autonomous person. This sounds, again, simple, but again, if you have a friendship community that is everything, and there's like a little bit of groupthink as a team, right? Yeah. Of like, I'm here for my women friends. I'm here for all my friends. I'm here for my. It is very, and I think parents would say they probably have something similar. I had a big conversation when I explained this to a friend who has children, and she said, well, my children would be at the table. And I'm like, no, maybe all your parts would be looking at your children.
Right.
But they're not at the table.
Yeah.
So I think the idea that selfishness, that to be an autonomous person who considered myself first felt selfish was probably not the way to be.
Yeah.
And allowing that to just be like, no, that's what it means to be a human.
Right.
So I, as a therapist, you might say, well, like, oh, yeah, of course. But like, I don't know. For me, it took a bit to be like, the only people at the table is me.
Yeah, I there's a phrase that I like to use that I'm being reminded of right now, which is enlightened self-interest. And so when people use the word selfish, I know what they mean, right? Like, I'm like, I get what you're trying to say, but what I think this actually is enlightened self-interest. You're not selfish to the point of lacking empathy or care or consideration for anyone else, but you are sort of treating yourself as an independent, autonomous human being with agency, right? And that doesn't mean you're not considering your best friend's thoughts and opinions or your partner's thoughts and opinions, but you are sort of coming from a place of the buck stops with me. Like, ultimately, I have to make the decision and I have to be okay with it. And, you know, slowing down, I think those two bits of advice are related. I think in order to sort of take attendance, right, for all the parts of you, you have to slow down and you have to. And I do this, too. And it's funny, you mentioned kitchen table. My parts are in a conference room, which is so weird because I'm not corporate at all. Like, I've never.
Carrie from Succession loves that.
But it is 100% a round table, and it's in a conference room, and it's like a team meeting. It's basically like, okay, like, what's on the agenda? What do all the parts of Omar have to say? Like, who has grievances? Like, and it's very that. And in order to do that, I also have to slow down and not rush to giving an answer or labeling something. I sort of have to I have to take attendance and then sort of listen to again, like a team meeting or a town hall meeting. Like, all right, so what's up? What's going on, guys?
Yeah, I love that.
So I appreciate that. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you so much again for coming on.
No, it's so lovely to talk about this and talk about therapy and all my things. Yeah,
this is really, really helpful also for people to just hear about, other folks, like the advice that they take with them, that, and again, like the simple stuff is usually the most impactful. So I'm really, really happy to hear that the stuff you live by is just as simple as take a beat. It makes such a difference in it's made such a difference in my day to day, because I can also, mine more is more about people pleasing. It's more about what will make the other person happy. So that's why I'll rush to an answer that I think will make them happy. And I'm like, Omar, what do you actually want to do? So I'm confident that a lot of people will resonate with that advice. Where can folks find you if they want to read your work or listen to you? Where can folks find you?
I would recommend the Love Letters podcast, which is really Love Letters, Boston Globe podcast, wherever you get podcasts. And I feel like anybody who likes audio things will enjoy those stories. I mean, the advice column is, I think the free version is boston.com/love letters. But one thing I love about the podcast is just people storytelling.
Yeah.
And speaking to the single thing, we have an episode recently about third wheels. And I loved being I love currently being a third wheel when I am a third wheel. And so single versus couples of single people who love hanging out with couples and what couples get from having a shared friend. So that's so
cool.
Yeah.
I never realized it until you just said it, but I also love being a third wheel.
Oh, I love, especially when you really, and I'm talking about the situations where you're really equally knowing those people and how much you can strengthen a relationship as that third wheel and vice versa.
Right.
As I told my sister, for a while, I just wasn't paying for things. And I realized all my coupled friends were like, oh my God, we have two incomes and you have one income. So we'll do it. And I'm like, okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So there are benefits as well, but also just the perception gap of feeling like, oh, I shouldn't want that, or I'd be baggage, or they wouldn't want to hang out with us because we're a boring couple of of dispelling all of those.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, it feels so, I mean, not to like start a whole new conversation. It just feels so low stakes for me. I'm like, this is great. I don't know. It just feels like fun. And so if you're in a couple, invite your single friends out. They would love to hang out. I would love to. Yeah.
It was all the single people who wrote in when I did a call out and said, I would love to be invited. And it wasn't single people saying, I don't want that. And the couples were a little bit saying, would they really want that? So I do think, again, it's like a misunderstanding of community and what people want.
Oh, that is so interesting. Okay, folks, well, you heard it here first. If you want to learn more about Third Wheels, then please, please, please listen to the Love Letters podcast. Meredith, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And I got to have you back on because there's always some relational thing happening. So you will be one of the frequent guests. So just like,
all right. I'm so honored.
Keep an eye out on your DMs, unfortunately. All right, everybody. So as you know, I am a therapist, but this podcast is no substitute for good old-fashioned therapy. So take what's useful, leave the rest, and don't forget, therapy makes you hotter. Bye.